Gah! What the hell was that? Sidelined by a goods train? Whatever has this railway become? What in the name of Charles Collar was that? Jesus wept! Wait, was that a... The engines of the Redwick and Chiltern Hills were sat in the sheds of Redwick debating over an interesting rumour that had come about once King Richard had returned with his evening express. At first, the starred lot had simply rolled their eyes and ignored the king, thinking it to be a failing attempt at fooling them. However, when Darius arrived and confirmed that he had seen the same thing King Richard had, all the engines had piled into the conversation, each throwing their own 2 cents into the matter. And for the first time in what felt like years, there was no argument going on between the 2 sides, only speculation and intrigue. I didn't even have the time to see who or what it was before it shot out of view. It was quite surprising. Aye, same here. One moment it was just me and the platform, then the next moment something massive shot by me on the main line.
Something massive, you say? Well, we have our fair share of big locomotives on the network. What are we thinking?
What about a Dub D? Those are pretty huge.
No way. You'd hear one of those clanking before you even saw it.
He's got a good point. But what else could it be?
How about a cathedral?
On a goods train? Not very likely. That would be most unbefitting of Mr. Hawksworth's swan song.
What about that engine that was rumoured around wartime? That big one from the southern region? Oh, what was it called again?
You mean the mountain? DR-1202? No, that's impossible. How come? Because DR-1202 was scrapped back in 46 due to a miscommunication on the board of the Dark Railway. Buck, how do you know all this stuff? I know things.
Random trivia knowledge, you'll love to see it, mate. Okay. Well, anyways, what if it's a new design? I heard rumours of a new 210 being drawn up. Maybe it's that.
Unlikely. Seeing as you just said yourself, it's being currently drawn up, if the rumours are to be believed.
Oh yeah. Silly me.
Well, I'm stumped. What else could it be?
Maybe some of the workmen know. Yes, you might be right, old friend.
Well, we could always ask.
Good evening, you lot. How goes it?
Ah, Mr. Starr, just the prick we were looking for.
Thanks. Excuse me, sir, but me and Darius here saw something quite unusual today. Mr. Starr raised an eyebrow at the civil manner King Richard was addressing him by. Okay. And what would that be? Well, we didn't actually see what it was, but something massive shot by us hauling a van strain. I believe it was the one from New Wessex, but that's usually hauled by Buck's brother, and he's nowhere near that size.
I mean, to be fair, Bucky is getting rather fat.
I'm not fat! Right. Well, yes, it was a new van strain from New Wessex, an experimental one that me and Lord Stavel have been cooking up, so you lot are correct there.
So you know what it is then, sir? The engine, I mean.
Well, yes. Yes, I do, and that's kinda why I'm here. The engines all looked over at the manager with interest, but remained quiet. Well, firstly, as you're all aware, the Redwick Flyer has received nothing but high praise over the last few months. This is due to the smooth ride and the timely arrival that King Richard, Anthony Manor, and Thor have been able to produce since they were allocated to it. King Richard shot Ramsay a smug look, causing him to roll his eyes.
However, we have encountered a bit of an issue with the service.
Now, it was King Richard's turn to raise a brow. And what would that be? You just said it was highly popular with the public. Yes, I did indeed. And to be fair to you, King Richard, you have done very well. However, the board does not share the same opinion as the public does. The simple fact of the matter is, due to us having to doublehead the service, we are running it at a loss. And if we continue to run it at a loss, the service will be terminated. King Richard was about to retaliate. However, as he thought about it, he realised that this was probably what British Railways wanted all along. If Mr. Starr was forced to cancel the train that was so popular with the public, his reputation would surely take a hit. He put on a miffed expression as he spoke. "Well, sir, if that's the case, then I would understand it if you'd have to retire the service. It was good while it lasted." The engines creased at the clearly fake attempt to seem concerned. Mr. Starr, however, seemed unfazed. "Well, I'm happy to hear you say that, King Richard. It certainly takes a load off my shoulders. I thought you'd be livid, but I'm so glad to hear that you're so okay with being retired from the service." "Yes, of course, as to be expected from an engine with my stature." "Wait, hang on! Retired? But you said—" "I said it was proving to be too expensive to double head. If you take away the need of 2 engines, however, the problem is solved."
But if King Richard and Radnor couldn't match the time, then there is no one else on this railway who can.
Unless...
Unless you account for the thing that cost you a lot of scare earlier. You can't be serious. Suddenly, out of the darkness, a huge locomotive came into view as it reversed grandly into the sheds. "Gentlemen, meet the newest and now our youngest member of the fleet. This is Redwick Cathedral, who was built graciously by Lord Stavell of the Isle of New Wessex and his workers at Alfriston Works. He is my very own privately owned cathedral-class locomotive who will be taking over the Redwick Flyer going forward. Redwick, these are your new co-workers. I will leave you lot to introduce yourselves. Redwick, I'll see you tomorrow at the station. Don't be late." "Understood, sir. I will see you tomorrow." "Anyways, yes, hello. My name is Redwick. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance." "Likewise. Welcome to our quaint little railway. My name is Banbury. I visit here from time to time to help with the increasing workloads." "Nice to meet you, Banbury." And my name is King Richard. I'm the pride of the line. I'm the fastest, the most loved, and the most recognizable one of everyone here." "Uh-huh. Right. Anyways, you were saying, Grange, is it? Sorry, I'm still a bit new to all the engine classes." "You got it right, mate. But yes, my name is Bucklebury, or Buck for short. I'm
A danger to himself and the lot of us. You're better off staying clear of him.
Yes, you'd be better off with the likes of us, who can actually stay on the rails and act our age." Buck's expression fell. He looked away. Whatever. Buck reversed further into the sheds as Banbury, Riley, and Ramsay shot the two of them an angry scowl. "Now that was uncalled for, you two. He was just trying to get to know the new guy." "Yes, that wasn't very nice at all. And if that's how you two treat the others around here, then I want nothing to do with either of you. We had bullies pretty similar to you back on the island of New Wessex, and I do not tolerate it here either." "Is that so? Well, then who's going to teach you how to properly handle the flyer, then?" "Joke's on you, I don't need teaching." "Ha! And how would you know anything about express runs? You're fresh out of the factory." "I may be young, but I'll have you know, I've taken the Wessex Wyvern a few times. And that train only stops at Paddington after Newport. That, and I've taken my fair share of goods and passenger trains on the island itself." "You? Goods trains? Oh my word! How much of a failure do you have to be to take trucks? You're a Pacific, for goodness sakes, not a common goods engine." Frederick looked hurt at these words, and remained silent. "That is enough out of you two over there. The poor lad has just arrived, and you're already belittling him? Shame on you both." Whatever. We'll see tomorrow what you're really made of." The sheds fell silent after that, as the engine slowly fell asleep in preparations for the work the next day. The last two awake being Redwick, who was now feeling nervous about tomorrow, and Buck, who had been listening to everything. As Buck closed his eyes, one last time that night, a single tear rolled down his smoke box. The next morning, Redwick awoke to find the sheds nearly completely empty. The only other engines there, other than him, was an older-looking mogul, a manor, and that pannier tank engine who had been there the night before. He yawned as he started to wake up, causing the other engines to look over. "Ah, you're finally awake. Good morning, young lad." "Good morning." I take it you're the new chap who caused quite the stir-up last night, then? Oh, so you heard about that, then? Well, of course. It was all we could speculate about up at our sheds last night. No one has ever managed to go that fast through the junction, let alone with the haulage you had. Yes, indeed. I heard about it from Darius, the 4300, down at Manifeld this morning. It was quite the feat. Oh, so that's what you meant. Sorry, I misunderstood you there. It was nothing really. I'm built to go way faster than what I did last night. But I did push the speed limit a bit due to the service being delayed by a few hours departing from Refuge. Did still manage to make it here a full 8 minutes before I was predicted to arrive, though.
That's still very impressive, mate.
Indeed. Oh, but where are our manners? My name's Clint. I'm the oldest engine on the line. This here is Thornton, or Thor for short. He was our youngest steam engine till you arrived. And this is Riley, our designated banker who sometimes shunts or takes trains when availability is too low. It's a pleasure to meet you all. My name is Redwick. Apparently I was named after a town on this line?
You're currently in it, mate. This is our top station.
Oh, right, sorry. I was a bit tired last night after getting here, and my mind was on other things. That's quite understandable, lad. It must have been quite a long trip all the way from New Wessex to here. What were you doing on the van train from New Wessex anyways, Redwick? Seems like a bit of a detour from Swindon, if you ask me. Oh, you don't know? I wasn't built at Swindon. I was built on New Wessex. At the works at Alfredston, the capital of the island? Really now? Yes, I know. I once worked on the island alongside the rest of my batch. One still works there. Rodley. Do you know of him? Oh, no kidding. Yes, of course I know Rod. He's a good friend of mine. That's good to hear. How is he? The engines kept up the high-spirited conversation while Redwick built up steam. Soon, he was ready for action. Steam flowing through him freely as pressure reached optimal working levels. Though this was routine for him, he couldn't help but feel a bit nervous. Clint recognized the expression on the young engine's smokebox and inquired about what was troubling him. Redwick sighed and explained what had happened the night before. The other engines listened intently to what the young engine said. And I guess what he said about me hauling freight kinda stuck with me. What if I'm not good enough for this express? Clint gave the younger engine a sympathetic look. I don't believe you have anything to worry about, Redwick. Think about it. Ramsey, a county class, was almost able to keep to the time. The only reason he failed was because he had an issue with his brakes that held him back. Well, yes, but I still can't help but feel a bit nervous. That's only natural. I remember when I first arrived. I was so used to working with my brothers, so it took a while for me to adjust to working on my own. Luckily, Anthony Manor took me under his wing when I arrived.
Yeah, man, you'll be grand. It's like you said last night, it's not your first time holding an express.
I guess not, no. I mean, I've hauled a wyvern a couple of times. Exactly! You'll be just fine. So long as you give it your all, nothing can go wrong. Redwick now felt a bit more confident in himself, and he let a smile form on his smokebox as he looked between the engines and the sheds. Thank you. All of you. I needed to hear that. We're always here to help our own, Redwick.
Hate to break up this wholesome and heart-burning chat, but you should go get ready for your journey, Redwick. I'll be getting your coaches in a sec.
And so I should. Thank you once again, you three. It was a pleasure talking to you all. Likewise to you. Have a good run, Redwick. The Big Pacific got himself refueled on coal and water before making his way over to the station. Reversing onto his coaches, he took in his surroundings. He had become accustomed to the hustle and bustle of Alfredston back on the island, and yet, here, in the smaller town, everything seemed so much more quiet and peaceful than what he was used to. When he came to a halt on his awaiting train, he noticed some of the people who were pointing and whispering about him, some with confused looks, and others in mild shock. He shuffled uncomfortably as he waited. Soon enough, he was joined by Mr. Stard. Good morning, Redwick. Are you ready for your big day? As ready as I'll ever be, I suppose. You suppose? Not getting cold wheels, are you? I guess a bit, sir. Nerves are getting to me a little bit. Whatever for? You've had your trial runs on the Wessex Wyvern before you came here, didn't you? Well, yes. I had a few runs between Alfredston and Paddington before I came here. I guess my confidence has just taken a bit of a hit since then. Your confidence? How come? Redwick Cathedral quickly explained to him what had happened the night before after Mr. Start had departed from the sheds. Once he had finished, Mr. Start had an understanding look on his face. I see. Well, I can't say I'm surprised that happened. You are his replacement after all. But that still doesn't excuse his outburst. He's been riding on an ego boost ever since he got assigned to the flyer, and now he won't be getting as much attention anymore. It's nothing to do with you, Redwick. He's probably just too prideful to give up without trying to bring you down. I see. I'm not really sure what I can do about it, though. It's not my fault I was rostered onto the service in the first place. No, of course not. That's all on me to try and make sure the service survives for the foreseeable future. As for what you can do about it, the easiest and best thing to do is ignore the haters, keep working, and make a name for yourself. Make a name for myself, you say? I think I can do that. Thank you, Mr. Stodd. It was at that moment that the guard blew his whistle, signaling to the two that it was time to depart. Well, Redwick, the time has come. I will be coming along with you on this journey, and I will see you before I go to lunch in London. Just remember to give it your all, and you'll be fine. Thank you, sir. Mr. Stodd scurried away to his compartment. And not long after, Redwick set off out of the station with a cheerful whistle, filled with determination. Redwick quickly settled into a nice pace along his new home line, quickly reaching the 50 miles per hour speed limit and maintaining it as he glided down towards the junction. He took in the views he had been unable to see the night before, the rural areas reminding him of his old home turf. Soon enough, he slowly crossed onto the main line at Manifield Junction. And as soon as he was clear of the points, he put down his real power. The moment Mr. Start felt him accelerate, he knew his investment had been worth it. Despite his worries, Redwick Cathedral made excellent time along the main line, and soon enough, he glided gently into Paddington. Glancing at the clock, he realized he had arrived the whole 10 minutes earlier than he was supposed to. Mr. Stard walked by him with the rest of the board members, and shot Redwick a quick thumbs up as he walked past him. This was all Redwick needed to know that he had done well. He beamed all the way down to Rainlaw Bridge, where he could have a rest. His smile grew even wider, though, as he came to a stop on the turntable. There, in front of him, stood two other members of his class. One of them he had yet to meet. The other, however... Alfred! It's so good to see you! How are you today?
Red, my dear fellow, I didn't think I'd see you again this soon. How was your trip to your new home?
It was fine, thank you. I couldn't really see much as it was quite dark when I arrived, but I must say, seeing it in the daylight on my way here, I'm indifferent.
How come?
Well, firstly, it's not Alfredston City, that's for sure. Everything is so quiet and rural. It's almost, dare I say, underdeveloped? I'm not trying to be rude or anything. I'm very grateful for Mr. Stodd having me built and naming me after a town on his line. It's just...
It's very different to what you're used to. And as you were only recently built, life on the island is all you've ever known.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I'm sorry, I don't believe we've met before.
The name, my dear engine, is F.W. Hawksworth, but everyone calls me Fred.
Redwick's eyes widened in awe. Oh my god! I'm so sorry, sir. I should have addressed you properly. Alfred groaned quietly, while F.W. Hawksworth chuckled.
Oh, come on now, Redwick. No need for formalities. You can call me Fred, same as everyone else.
Oh, I see. Sorry. I guess I got a bit excited there. I've heard so much about you while I was being built and during my trials on the island. I never thought I'd actually meet you. The engines talked for a good long while, and before long, Alfred had to depart and take the Wessex Wyvern back to New Wessex, leaving Redwick along with F.W. Hawksworth. So, Fred, do you mind if I ask you something?
Of course not. What's on your mind, young one?
Were you named Fred when you were first built? Or did you change your name to that later?
Well, I wouldn't say my name was changed, per se. My name is still F.W. Hawksworth, but Fred is just a shortening of it. Much easier to say. Why'd you ask?
Well, my manager told me I had to make a name for myself, and I've been trying to come up with one ever since he told me to. But I'm drawing a blank. I thought about shortening it to Red, like what Alfred calls me. But I don't know, it doesn't sound quite right to me. F.W. Hawksworth chuckled.
Oh, Redwick, my dear engine. I don't think that's what he had in mind.
It's not? But what about all the other engines with names on the line? Clint the Aberdare, Riley the Pannier Tank, and Buck, our Grange. They all have names.
I believe what he meant when he said make a name for yourself was to build up your reputation as a hard-working engine. Show the other engines that you're dedicated and earn their respect by offering your buffer when they need it. That is how you make a name for yourself, young Redwick.
Redwick sat in silence for a moment, realization slowly coming over him. So what you're saying is, I've just made an utter fool of myself.
No, of course you haven't, Redwick. You're young and still learning how the world works. Even I still learn something new more often than you think. You said there was an Aberdare class working on your railway, correct?
Yes?
Well, he has lived more than 5 times my lifetime. He probably holds a wealth of knowledge, just waiting to be used to help engines like you and me become the best that we can. As you grow older and wiser, you will build your own identity.
Just then, Redwick's crew entered his cab.
Come on, boy, the flyer won't haul itself.
Right. Sorry, Fred. Duty calls.
That's quite all right. Have a good journey and stay safe, young one.
Thank you, Fred. Hopefully I'll see you again soon. The journey back home went just as smoothly as his first, and he made excellent time as he charged through Colford in preparations for the climb ahead. The entire trip home, his mind had been focused on what F.W. Hawksworth had explained to him. What his older brother had said stuck with him. And even though his earlier mistake had left him a bit flustered, it still plagued his mind as he glided up the hill after the tunnel with ease. Soon, he pulled gently into his last stop of the day and breathed a sigh of relief. Once again, he had arrived early, quelling any remaining doubts about his own capabilities. Soon, he was joined by Mr. Stodd. He had a massive grin on his face. Well, kid, I can say without a doubt in my mind that you have officially been the first engine to shock the board into silence. Well done! Thank you, sir. So, how are those nerves of yours doing after that cracking performance? I told you had nothing to worry about. You were right, sir. And you will be happy to know that any leftover doubts have been quelled. That's good to hear. So what changed? I managed to have a chat with some of my brothers. and they told me that I'm still young and I have a whole life ahead of me to learn. I don't know, it kinda put things more into perspective for me. Well, I'm glad it helped. It's good to remember that you're still young and you have many years ahead of you to learn. You have a railway full of experienced engines and crew who will help you with anything you need. All you have to do is ask. Thank you, sir. I will. Now after a performance like you put on today, I'm sure you'll be itching for a good long rest. I have some paperwork to sort before I can call it a night. Head over to the sheds. You've earned it, Redwick. The big engine stayed silent for a moment, seemingly deep in thought, before taking a deep breath and... Reginald. Mr. Starr looked confused. I'm sorry? No offense, sir. I want to be called Reginald. I've been thinking about it ever since we left Paddington, and I think the name sounds perfect. It was actually the name of one of the workmen that built me. I'm sorry if I come across as disrespectful, sir. I'm really honored to be named after your railway. It's just... But Mr. Starr raised his hand, interrupting the big engine. Look, if you've found a name you really like for yourself, then who am I to refuse you? Redwick Cathedral is more of a staple of where you come from anyways. And if you prefer that name, then that's what we'll call you. Reginald. The big engine smiled. Oh, thank you, sir. Truly, that means a lot to me. That's quite alright, Reggie. Now you should get going before the local arrives. Wouldn't want to cause any delays, now would we? No, of course not, sir. Have a wonderful evening. Likewise to you. The two then went their separate ways. Reginald finally feeling at ease in his new home, and Mr. Stark over the moon with his latest acquisition. Time went on, as weeks turned into months. Reginald truly came into his stride. Ever since he had taken over the Redwick Flyer, the financial side of the service had improved drastically. The service now made a fairly sizable profit, especially for Mr. Stark, who was being compensated for the use of his own private locomotive on a public service, much to the dismay of his higher-ups. But that wasn't the only thing that had improved. Reginald had become more confident in himself and his abilities, solidifying his position as the flagship engine of the Redwick Flyer. And though he got along with most of the other engines, the BR lot, specifically King Richard and Hart Hall, still held resentment for the young engine. It didn't bother him though, as he knew it was just jealousy. At least, that's what the others had told him anyways. Reginald has gotten used to the quiet life of the Redwick and Chiltern Hills, actually finding it more appealing than the hustle and bustle of his old home turf. He looked forward to a long and peaceful life on the railway, but little did he know, his peaceful life was a fleeting luxury.
What about a damn fucking... There's a fucking bee in you. Fuck off.